again to another study from dreams, visions, and hypnosis in the Bible. And we've seen a lot of that. We're in the 18th chapter of 1 Samuel. Last message we did on the Nephilim. We went to the 6th chapter and of the book of Genesis, Barashith, and we read about the Nephilim. They were hybrids of angels, men, or masculine angels, and mixed women. Angels were not supposed to procreate, but they were created as such. They were all male, but now they're going to procreate. And by the way, how could Satan kind of increase his forces? This is one of the ways he could. And Nephilim are supernatural beings. They're human bodies, but they're supernatural in many ways. They're very large, very powerful, and hard to kill. But God is we're going to see some more of these later as we study the life of David and Jonathan also. Now, David and Jonathan were not lovers, by the way, as so many, the homosexual, gay, lesbian, queer, whatever today, try to make every movie star a homosexual and lesbian or whatever, and the same thing with the characters in the Bible. Well, as we read this, David and Jonathan became very close. By the way, their lives depended on each other. Their lives depended on each other. And many times in battle, a man will have a very close relationship with his wife, or wives as they had back here at that time, even till some, well, in modern times even. But they are very close to men many times than they are their wives or women. Sometimes a man and a woman will get along and they'll just be friends, real close friends. But many times men will be very close friends with other men. And that's what happened here. They were bosom friends, bosom buddies. Now it came about when he had finished speaking to Saul that the soul of Jonathan was knit to the soul of David, and Jonathan loved him as himself. And Saul took him that day and did not let him return to his father's house. He's talking about David. And Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. These are soul friends, soul friends. This man, I'll never forget Brother Madden talking about a friend he had in the army in World War II, and he was an Anzio. The man's name was Moxie Gumbo. He said, you know, we were in the army together 3 years. And he said, I just hated that man, but I loved him. I hated him because he was cruel and vicious, cruel man. But he said, I knew one thing, that when he was at my back, I never had to worry about my back. He was there, he was going to protect me, he was my friend. Well, as it had in war, and my father ended up with PTSD so bad, so severe that it cost him his life. But Brother Madden was in the trenches there at Anzio. I think he was 200 and some odd pounds. He was about 6'6", 6'8", something like that. Very large man. When he went in the army, he was well up there, you know, around 200 pounds or more. When he was discharged out of the army from Anzio, he was just decimated. He was 130 something pounds, this giant man. And they were starving to death down there. And somehow, he was a sergeant major, and he'd been in 7 campaigns, I believe it was. Anyway, he had got some coffee and some sugar and things that go into the things that go in coffee, whatever it was, whether they had cream or sugar or whatever it was. Anyway, it was a feast. And he had made it on his little stove, and I have one of those stoves, little can heat stove, and he had made some coffee. And he said, Moxie Gumbo, you want to drink it or wear it? At about that time, he said he came with glazed over eyes with a razor sharp bayonet to try to cut his head off. He had gone over the edge. They had been bosom buddies all the time. He said, in a moment I knew I had to kill him. He said he was so powerful that he said it would have taken, I would have lost half a dozen men trying to contain him. He said, I pulled that 45 out and shot him right underneath the throat. His best friend, all the way through the war, and that was the end of his war campaign, I believe, at that time. When they were finally overcame, they were there for months in the trenches. Well, Saul and Jonathan had that kind of relationship. Their lives depended on each other. And Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was on him, and he gave it to David. Now, this is a princely robe, by the way. This is one that his father had given to him. Only the princes could wear this robe. And he gave it to David, and with his armor, including his sword and his bow and his belt. Then David went out wherever Saul sent him, and prospered, because God was with him. And Saul sent him over the men of war, and it was pleasing in the sight of all the people, and also in the sight of Saul's servants. And it happened about, as they were coming in, that when David had returned from killing the Philistine was probably talking about a Nephilim here, the Philistine, that the women came out and all the cities singing and dancing to meet King Saul with tambourines and joy and with musical instruments. And the women sang as they played and said, Saul has slain his thousands and David his 10,000. Well, this really is going to upset Saul because he was a very jealous man. Then Saul became extremely, very boilingly angry, for this saying displeased him, and he said, they have ascribed to David 10,000s, but to me only ascribed to thousands. Now what more can he have but the kingdom? And Saul looked at David with suspicion from that day forward. Now it came about on the next day that an evil spirit from God came. Now we're not this evil spirit. God allowed a demon evil spirit to harass him. He allowed it. Came mightily upon Saul and he raved. By the way, this here, he's talking in tongues. The word rave is mantuomene in Greek. Raved. It's kind of, the word there is to talk in gibberish to the demon gods. He raved. He talked in gibberish. He talked in unknown tongues, so to speak. Now, in the New Testament, the unknown tongues came from the King James Version, but in the original language it says language, glossalia. And he talked in an unknown language, incoherently insane, in the midst of the house. Now, the prophets of Baal on Mount Carmel, they talked in this gibberish. They raved just like this. And he is now, demons have taken over his mind and his spirit. And while David was playing with the harp with his hand as usual, and a spear was in Saul's hand. The spear, this is a weapon of war. And Saul hurled the spear, for he thought, I will pin David to the wall, but David escaped from his presence twice. Here's a man that's doing everything he can do to comfort him. He's his son's best friend. And now he's going to kill him because he's jealous. Now Saul was afraid of David, for the Lord was with him, but he had departed from Saul. The Lord had departed from Saul. The leadership of the Holy Spirit had departed from Saul. Therefore Saul removed him from his presence and appointed him as his commander of 1,000, and he went out and came in before the people. And David was prospering, that all the ways the Lord was with him. And Saul saw that he was prospering greatly, and he dreaded him. He dreaded seeing him. He hated his very company. Every time he looked at him, he was so jealous he wanted to kill. All Israel and Judah loved David, and he went out and came in before him. Then Saul said to David, "Here is my older daughter, Merab. I will give her to you as a wife, only be a valiant man for me, and fight the Lord's battles." For Saul thought that my hand shall not be against him, but let the hand of the Philistines be against him. I'll get him killed. I'll put him out there in the heat of the battle, and surely they'll kill him. I'm going to send him out there against the Nephilims more. These are giants. And there was 4 of them besides Goliath. And David said to Saul, "Who am I, and what is my life, or my father's family in Israel, that I should be the king's son-in-law?" So it came about at the time when Merab, Saul's daughter, should have been given to David, that she was given to Adriel, the Mahalathite, for a wife. He gave her to somebody else. Now Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David. Michal. Now this word Micah, or Michael here, is the same word. This is the word for Michael. It means who is like God. That's what it means in Hebrew. And it's the feminine form of it. Just like Dinah is the feminine form of Dan. And when they told Saul, the thing was agreeable to him. And Saul thought, "I will give her to him, that she may become a snare to him." She's going to be, I know how she is. She's going to be a snare to him. I'm going to give him the worst. And the hand of the Philistines may be against him, and therefore Saul said to David, "For a second time you may be my son-in-law today." And Saul commanded his servants, "Speak to David, and saying, Behold, the king delights in you, and all his servants love you, and now therefore become the king's son-in-law." So Saul's servants spoke these words to David. But David said, "It is trivial in your sight to become the king's son-in-law, since I am but a poor man and highly esteemed," or lightly esteemed, that is. And the servants of Saul reported to him according to the words which David spoke. Then he said, "Thus you'll say to David, the king does not desire any dowry except 100 foreskins of the Philistines." Oh, this is really neat, isn't it? He's going to have to go out and kill 100 Philistines and circumcise them and bring the foreskins. Today this is really gross, but back then they did things like this. To take the revenge of the king's enemies. Now Saul planned to make David fall by the hand of the Philistines. He should have known better than that, because God was with David. You could have sent him in the lion's den or whatever you wanted to do. Throw him in a fiery furnace. Throw him out there in front of 4 or 5 more Nephilim. And when his servants told David these words, it pleased David to become the king's son-in-law before the days had expired. And David rose up and went, he and his men, and they struck down 200 men among the Philistines. And then David brought their foreskins, and he gave him twice as much as he wanted. Full number to the king, that he might become the king's son-in-law. So Saul gave him Michal, his daughter, for a wife. And when Saul saw and knew that the Lord was with David, and that Michal, Saul's daughter, loved him, then Saul was even more afraid of David. So Saul was David's enemy continually, his own son-in-law, and he hated him and wanted him dead. Then the commanders of the Philistines went out in battle, and it happened so as often as they went out that David behaved himself more wisely than all the servants of Saul, and so that his name was highly esteemed. Now Saul told Jonathan, his son, and all his servants to put David to death. He's going to kill him now. He's going to murder him. But Jonathan, Saul's son, greatly delighted in David. Remember, Jonathan loved David. This is his best friend. So Jonathan told David, saying, Saul, my father, is seeking to put you to death. Now therefore, please be on guard in the morning and stay in a secret place and hide yourself. And I will go out and stand beside my father in the field, where you are, and I will speak with my father about you, and if I find out anything, then I shall tell you. Then Jonathan spoke well of David to Saul, his father. And he said to him, do not let the king sin against his servant, David, since he has not sinned against you, and since his deeds have been very beneficial to you. Beneficial, good, tov is the Hebrew word tov. And it became good. That's what's in the Genesis and the reconstruction of the heavens and the earth. And then it became good. And he said he is good. Good here is spiritually good. He's spiritually good for you. For he took his life in his hand and struck the Philistine. And the Lord brought about a great deliverance for all of Israel. And you saw it and rejoiced. Why then will you sin against innocent blood by putting David to death without a cause? And Saul listened to the voice of Jonathan, and Saul vowed. Saul is just like that. Back and forth, back and forth. As the Lord lives, he shall not be put to death. Then Jonathan called David, and Jonathan told him all these words. And Jonathan brought David to Saul, and he was in his presence as formerly. Okay, for a while. There was war again, and David went out and fought with the Philistines and defeated them with a great slaughter, so that they fled before him. Now there was an evil spirit from the Lord on Saul, an evil spirit that the Lord allowed to come upon Saul as he was sitting in his house with his spear in his hand. I'm going to tell you something. If I'd David, I wouldn't go in that house if that boy had a spear in his hand, would you? And David was playing the harp with his hand. He was trying to comfort him. Not only he was his personal servant, his valet, you might say, along as a warrior, his general. And Saul tried to pin David to the wall with the spear, but he slipped away out of Saul's presence. So that he struck the spear into the wall, and David fled and escaped that night. Now David doesn't try to kill Saul, does he? You know, when somebody's trying to kill you, you usually want to do what? You defend yourself and kill that person. That's what you do. David didn't do that. So Saul sent messengers to David's house to watch him in order to put him to death in the morning. Again. But Michal, David's wife, told him, saying, if you do not save your life tonight, tomorrow you will be put to death. So Michal let David down to a window, and he went out and fled and escaped. And Michal took the household idol and laid it on the bed. The household idol. She was an idolater. She was an idolater. This idol was evidently full size. And put a quilt of goat's hair on its head and covered it with clothes. And when Saul sent messengers to take David, she said, he's sick. And when Saul sent messengers to take David, she said, he's sick, he's sick. Then Saul sent messengers to see David, saying, bring him out unto me on his bed, that I may put him to death. He didn't have any mercy, did he? He's going to kill him. And when the messengers entered, behold, the household idol was on the bed with the quilt and the goat's hair on his head. Now, David was a believer, wasn't he? But evidently, Michal wasn't a believer. Not in the God of Israel, but in the idols. So Saul said to Michal, why have you deceived me like this, and let my enemy go, so that he has escaped? And Michal said to Saul, he said to me, let me go. Why should I be put to death? Why should I put you to death? Now David fled and escaped and came to Samuel at Ramah. and told him what Saul had done to him. And Samuel went and stayed in Naioth. And it was told Saul, saying, Behold, David is in Naioth in Ramah. Then Saul sent messengers to take David. But when they saw the company of the prophets prophesying, with Samuel standing and presiding over them, the Spirit of God came upon the messengers of Saul, and they prophesied. The Holy Spirit does some weird things here now. And when it was told to Saul, now here we call visions, dreams, and hypnosis, these people were hypnotized. They were hypnotized. When that non-believing high priest, Caiaphas, God called him, he was an unbeliever, he was a Sadducee. He didn't believe in miracles, he didn't believe in a God, a real God, and angels or spirits or heaven or hell or anything. But he presided over the trial that murdered Jesus. And Saul was a type of Caiaphas at this period of time. And he sent other messages, and they prophesied, and so Saul sent messengers again the third time, and they also prophesied. God came upon all of these men. They were all in a hypnotic trance, hypnosis. And he himself went to Ramah and came as far as the large well that is in Succoth, and he asked and said, Where are Samuel and David? And they said, Behold, they are at the Naioth in Ramah. And he proceeded there to Naioth in Ramah, and the Spirit of God came upon him also, so that he went along prophesying continually until he came to Naioth in Ramah. And he also stripped off all his clothes, and he too prophesied before Samuel, and lay down naked all that day and all that night. And therefore it said, Is Saul among the prophets? Here we have a man that's trying to kill basically his Savior. He's trying to kill him. And yet he's done no harm to him at all. He gave one daughter to him and then gave it to another man in anger and hate. Then he gives his daughter to him because he thinks she's going to be a thorn in his flesh, and she turns out to be in love with him, at least for now. And then when he goes to kill him, he sends all of his men to kill him, and the Spirit of God comes upon them, and they're all in a hypnotic trance, and they're prophesying. Now they're prophesying where you can hear it. This is not talking about talking in tongues like he was raving before. It's not raving, this is real speech. Then David fled to Naioth in Ramah, and came and said to Jonathan, What have I done? What is my iniquity? And what is my sin before your father that he is seeking my life? Have you ever had somebody just hated you for no cause? Have you ever had anybody hated you for no cause? They wanted to do nothing but evil to you. And he said to him, Far from it, you shall not die. Behold, my father does not either anything great or small without disclosing it to me. So why should my father hide this thing from me? It is not so. Yet David vowed again, saying, Your father knows well that I have found favor in your sight. And he has said, Do not let Jonathan know this, unless he be grieved. But truly, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, there is hardly a step between me and death. There's hardly a step between me and death. Then Jonathan said to David, Whatever you say, I will do it for you. So David said to Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is the new moon. By the way, Israel does not go by the solar calendar, it goes by the lunar calendar. There's less days in a month in the Jewish lunar calendar than there is in the solar calendar. So David said to Jonathan, Behold, tomorrow is a new moon, and I ought to go and sit to eat with the king. But let me go, that I may hide myself in the field until the third evening. And if your father misses me at all, Then say, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem, his city, because it is a yearly sacrifice there for the whole family. He expects him to come here because this is a command invitation. You don't go there unless you've got a command or an invitation. And if you got an invitation, you go there on pain of death. You've insulted the king. And if he says, it is good, your servant shall be saved. But if he is very angry, know that he has decided an evil thing, an arum, evil, deceitful thing, arum. Therefore deal kindly with your servant, for you have brought your servant into a covenant with the Lord with you. But if there is iniquity in me, put me to death yourself, for why should you bring me to your father? Just kill me right here. And Jonathan said, far be it from you, for if I should indeed learn that evil has been decided by my father, and to come upon you, then will I not tell you about it? Then David said to Jonathan, who will tell me if your father answers you harshly? And Jonathan said to David, come and let us go out into the field. So both of them went out into the field. We've had a lot of dream visions and hypnosis so far, haven't we? Prophesying, all kinds of things here. Hypnotic trances. Then Jonathan said to David, the Lord, the God of Israel, be witness. When I have sounded out my father about this time tomorrow, on the third day, behold, if there is good feeling toward David, shall I not then send to you and make it known to you? If it please my father to do you harm, may the Lord do also to Jonathan, and even more also, if I do not make it known to you and send you away, that if you may go in safety, and may the Lord be with you, as he has been with my father. If I am still alive, will you not show me the loving kindness of the Lord, that I may not die? You shall not cut off your loving kindness from my house forever, not even when the Lord cuts off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth. David is going to take care of his children when he is killed. David promises that he's going to take care of his children. Now usually, when you have a king and all of his descendants and princes and everything else, when you take over, you kill all of them, because they're always planning something against you to take back over the throne. So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, may the Lord require it of the hands of David's enemies. And Jonathan made David vow again, because of the love for him, and because he loved him as he loved his own life. Then Jonathan said to him, tomorrow is the new moon, and you will be missed, because your seat will be empty. A command performance, remember. And when you have stayed for 3 days, you shall go down quickly and come to this place, where you hid yourself on that eventful day, and you shall remain by the stone in Ezel. And if I shoot an arrow, shoot 3 arrows to the side, as though I shot at a target. And behold, I will send the lad, saying, go and find the arrows. If I specify, say to the lad, behold, the arrows are on this side of you, get them, then come, for there is safety for you, and no harm, as the Lord lives. But if I say to the youth, behold, the arrows are beyond you, go, for the Lord has sent you away. And as for the agreement you and I have spoken, behold, the Lord is between you and me forever. So David hid in the field. And when the new moon came, the king sat down to eat. And the king sat in the seat as usual, the seat by the wall. Then Jonathan rose up, and Abner sat down by Saul's side. Now, Abner's a general, but David's place was empty. Nevertheless, now, by the way, they weren't sitting in seats. They're laying on cushions. They got a little table, a short, like a coffee table in front of them with food on it, and they're laying up with cushions to this table and their feet behind them. Nevertheless, Saul did not speak anything that day, for he thought, it's an accident. He is not clean. Surely he is not clean. You had to be ceremonially clean to go to these banquets. You couldn't kill a man that day. You couldn't touch anything unclean, whatever. And it came about the next day, the second day of the new moon, that David's place was empty. So Saul said to Jonathan his son, why has the son of Jesse not come to the meal, either yesterday or today? And Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked leave of me to go to Bethlehem. And he said, please let me go, since our family has a sacrifice in this city, and my brother has commanded me to attend. And now if I found favor in your sight, please let me get away, that I may see my brothers. For this reason he has not come to the king's table. Then Saul's anger burns against Jonathan. And he said to him, you son of a perverse, rebellious woman. What he called him was SOB. That's what happened. That's what he called him. Now I know that you are choosing the son of Jesse to your own shame, and to the shame of your mother's nakedness. He keeps calling him an SOB, is what he keeps doing. This is a polite term, but that's what he's saying. For as long as the son of Jesse lives on this, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. And therefore now send and bring him to me, for he must surely die. But Jonathan answered Saul his father and said to him, why should he be put to death? What has he done? Then Saul hurled his spear at him to strike him down. So Jonathan knew that his father had decided to put David to death. Then Jonathan rose from the table in fierce anger. Did not eat food on the second day in the new moon, for he was grieved over David because his father had dishonored him. Now it came about in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field for the appointment with David, and a little lad was with him. And he said to the lad, run, find now the arrows which I am about to shoot. And as the lad was running, he said, he shot an arrow past him. And when the lad had reached the place of the arrow which Jonathan had shot, Jonathan called after the lad and said, it is not the arrow beyond you. And Jonathan called after the lad, and hurry, be quick, do not stay. And Jonathan's lad picked up the arrow and came to his master. But the lad was not aware of anything. Only Jonathan and David knew about the matter, about the plan. Then Jonathan gave his weapons to his lad. He said to him, go bring them to the city. And when the lad was gone, David arose from the south side and fell on his face to the ground and bowed 3 times. And they kissed each other and they wept together. But David more. And Jonathan said to David, go in safety, inasmuch as we have sworn to each other in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord will be between you and me, and between my descendants and your descendants forever. And then he rose and departed, while Jonathan went into the city. What a sad story, huh? A sad story of total jealousy. You ever had anybody jealous of you? So jealous of you, they made you miserable. They wanted to hurt you, wanted to punish you. That's what happened here with David. Sometimes we can understand these stories more when we apply them to our own lives. You follow the Lord no matter what happens to you. No matter what happens, follow the Lord. You may not know what you're supposed to do today, But just follow the Lord and He'll get you where you're supposed to be tomorrow. The message that we have tonight here is a message of love and hate. A message of love and hate. Love is for God so loved the world that He gave His only begotten Son, that whosoever believes in Him shall not perish but have everlasting life. And the hate comes from the Satan, the wicked one. And if you look up here, drop that down right now, the church history chart. Look at the path of Satan. Isaiah 14, 12 through 15, Ezekiel 28, 11 through 19. This is where he destroyed the earth. And all the way through here, all the way through, all the wicked things that he has done, and always he calls men to hate God, to not trust God. All the way back here in the garden, what did he tell Eve? Surely God will not do it. Surely God's lying to you. He's trying to cheat you. Trying to cheat you out of a blessing, trying to cheat you out of knowledge. That's Satan. But know this, as we see his path, all the way down through here, and we come over here, and then we, Revelation 12, 17 through 19, of course, Galatians, the second, or not Galatians, but Ephesians, the second chapter, it talks about the evilness. Even in the first chapter, it talks about the evilness of Satan. Job, the first chapter, talks about how Satan is always tried to cause hate and confusion and wars in the world. Little children killed in war is not God's fault. That's Satan's fault. Satan is always at work in the world, causing confusion, hate, and destruction. We expect that. Just read Job many times in your life. You ought to read Job, the book of Job, at least once a year, to know what you're going to face in this life. Our Father, we send this message out for your honor and glory, for our comfort and education, and how to follow you. Please forgive me where I fail you. In Jesus' name I pray.